I'm interviewing one of my favorite people in the media, Jessica Bennett from Newsweek. She writes great pieces on basically issues that have to deal with women, pop culture. She's a great writer, and she recently wrote an article about how reality television portrays women, and I thought that this was a very important topic, so I'm going to ask her a couple questions about that today. So, Jessica, I love the title of your piece, so I want to start off with that. You write, "Everything I learned about women, I learned from reality TV, which means I must think they're all desperate, competitive, plastic surgery-obsessed bimbos." So tell me how you really feel about reality TV.
Right, exactly. If we really did learn everything that we know about women from reality TV, we might actually think that because we wouldn't watch anything of substance.
All right, so give me a couple examples. I know that you lay a couple out in your piece. What type of reality shows are there, and how exactly do they portray women as these desperate bimbos?
Well, there's a few different kinds. The piece that I wrote was based on a book that just came out called Reality Bites Back by a woman named Jennifer Posner, who really spent a couple of years just watching reality show after reality show for hour after hour after hour. And she outlines actually a couple of stock characters that you can find in most of these shows. So, there's the bitch, there's the slut, there's the bimbo, there's often the angry black woman, and in show after show you can kind of see these characters over and over and over again, and you definitely don't see the same for men.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned that last part about men, because I feel like with reality television, beginning with The Real World on MTV, you always have that token character, right? You have the bitchy female, and then
Absolutely.
you have the man who's obsessed with sex, and then you have the token gay guy and the token black guy. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's always this negative portrayal of people of all different backgrounds in reality television. Is that not true?
Yeah, there definitely is to some sense. And I think that one of the things, I like reality TV and I watch it too, and it's funny and it can be entertaining. But the problem, I think, is that these shows are masked as reality when, in fact, they're very produced. They're overproduced in many cases. And as you said, there's these characters that appear again and again. And that's not real. That's some producer behind the scenes who's making someone into that person. And I think a lot of, especially young kids and young girls who are watching these shows, don't necessarily realize that.
Right, and I mean, when you really put things in perspective, is a reality television about intelligent women going to sell? People love to escape reality. They love to watch train wrecks, and I think that's part of the reason why reality television has become so successful. And you personally talk about how it's a guilty pleasure for you. It's a guilty pleasure for me as well. After a long day of work, there's nothing better than turning on Bravo and watching The Real Housewives.
Exactly, and you don't have to think very hard,
you don't
which
have to
makes
think.
it easy.
Right. So, okay, I agree with you. The portrayal of women in reality television is not realistic. Give me the reality. What is the reality out there?
Well, I think the reality, there are all types of women, but if you look at America as a whole, women are actually making a lot of strides. Last year we became the majority of the workforce for the first time in history. A lot of women are waiting longer to have children. They're waiting longer to get married. They're more educated than men. We graduated almost twice the rate of men now from college. So we're doing very well in various aspects of our lives. But if you look on television, you'd think that most of us are anorexic and want to be judged solely on our looks and competing in model shows and or for men in shows like The Bachelor.
So let me ask you another question. Do you think that this portrayal is really destructive to society? I mean, I know that I watch these reality shows and I think, okay, these women are train wrecks, but this isn't reality. This isn't something that I'm actually going to use to change my perspective on women or change my perspective on men. Do you really think that this is destructive on our society? Is it really changing viewpoints?
Well, I think the challenge is being able to know the difference between what's reality and what's not. And, we're a little bit older, we're educated. We can obviously tell the difference. When we go home and we want to veg out and watch The Housewives or whatever it is, we know it's not real. But, we also, I'm assuming you're about the same age as I am, I'm 29. I grew up with shows like My So-Called Life and things that seem much more realistic in some sense. even though they were scripted, than the reality shows we see today. So if you're a 13-year-old today who's only grown up on Bridezilla and Housewives and America's Next Top Model, you don't really have much comparison, and so it's easy to see how you might think that's real.
Right. So I want to go back to the discussion of how men are portrayed in reality television as well. I can't say that I've ever seen a man in reality television that was portrayed in a positive light. I'll give you a couple examples. And you actually mentioned this in your piece. You talk about Flavor of Love starring Flavor Flav.
Right.
And okay, I agree that that reality show has a bunch of suspect women or questionable women competing for Flavor Flav's love and romance, okay? But Flavor Flav is a complete train wreck on that show as well. In fact, he's the #1 clown on that show, right? So, and you see this time and time again. Can you think of any reality television shows that portray men in a positive light while also portraying women in a negative light?
Let's see. I mean, there's a lot of shows where men are kind of in the background, like even the Housewives shows, where they're not necessarily being portrayed as complete idiots. They're not the focus of the show, but the women are certainly train wrecks, as you said.
Right.
And, you know, there's a lot of shows like Flavor Flav where you're like, this person is ridiculous and a total idiot. But the thing is, they're still in control. So these women are still trying to please this man who's a total, complete loser, but he's still, you know, they're in control and they're doing everything at his whim.
Right. And I guess another example of that would be Jersey Shore. I mean, Jersey Shore has, I think, equal parts clownish men and clownish women. There's no question about that. All right. So,
right. And the sexuality plays into it a lot, too, I think. I mean, in Jersey Shore, for example, you know, Snooki is as powerful as the situation, I think, and they're both crazy and insane. But then at the end of the night, you know, Snooki wants the situation to like her, and she's doing all of these things that kind of demean her to make him, you know, want to hook up with her in the hot tub or whatever it is, which sounds ridiculous, but ultimately he still has the control in that situation.
So, Jessica, what do you think the solution to all this is? I mean, reality television at this point, we have to keep it real, is not going away. It's so profitable. In fact, every major network has some form of reality. You know, the Travel Channel has reality, although their reality is, you know, food shows and things like that that are interesting and not so bad. But, you know, Fox, are they going to get rid of their reality shows? Of course not. ABC, are they going to get rid of their reality shows? No, they're not. So what can we do to counterbalance the negative effects of reality television?
Well, I think we just have to talk about it and have conversations like these. And, you know, the author of this book that I was writing about, she goes around to schools and she talks to young women and young men about how scripted these shows actually are and how there really is a producer behind it creating all of this. So it's not really reality. And like you said, the bottom line is that these make way too much money to go away. And we watch them and they're entertaining and they can provide a great escape sometimes. But we have to recognize that they're not always truthful, and a lot of times they're a lot more like fiction than actual scripted shows.
Right, and you're absolutely right about that. The best way to battle the negative portrayal of women, men, any type of group on reality television is through education. So thank you so much for joining us, Jessica. I really enjoyed the interview.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm happy to be on with you.
Thanks.